Good morning guys, how we doing? So Dan from Trading with Dan here. So today I want to just have a look at this Forbes article that came out yesterday evening, on basically a central bank currency, cryptocurrency, based on the Ethereum blockchain. So we'll just have a read through the article. So $1 trillion stimulus jumpstarts project to issue central bank currency on Ethereum. So digital dollars exploded into the mainstream headlines earlier this week as the US House of Representatives scrambled to craft a draft bill that would authorize trillions of dollars in payments to consumers, states, businesses, and vulnerable populations during the COVID-19 emergency. It introduced the digital dollar concept that could potentially let the Federal Reserve, responsible for printing US dollars, send stimulus money direct to individuals. So yeah, Nancy Pelosi has been talking about this. Other central bankers, Mark Carney, has been talking about a central bank digital currency. The Chinese have been, they were talking about releasing their currency a few months ago, but obviously other issues probably took precedent over that. But yeah, central banks. I mean, there is no reason why central banks can't just use the current system to transfer money. They don't have to introduce a system that allows them to have massively increased control over the whole basically monetary network, and potentially then get rid of cash. They don't need to do this. They can just send money using their own system if they want to. There's no issues there. They have a digital based system. I mean, it's all numbers on the screen anyway. I mean, all these trillions that they're basically giving out on a daily basis at the moment, pretty much. To maybe that's an exaggeration, but trillions probably per week now that they're giving out to everybody, to prop up asset prices. I mean, they don't need a digital currency to do that, so they certainly don't need a digital currency to send the money to all the Americans. But hey, don't let a crisis go to waste. So anyway, inspired by Bitcoin and its underlying blockchain technology that lets individuals send value to each other without any middleman, the concept has been percolating behind the scenes in blockchain skunk works for months, when millions of people around the world first saw first-hand evidence of how the technology could impact them personally. Why give the money to the banks and hope it trickles down if the intended recipients are the actual citizens? Right, so I mean, there is an underlying presumption here that the intended recipient was the citizens, but I mean, the central bank basically works for the banks, and I think really they are the intended recipients. I mean, they may try and pretend it's for the real economy, but really it's just for their benefit and their system's benefit, because the underlying economy, I mean, the financial system as it is at the moment, it is a leech on the real economy. It's a drag on the real economy. So to pretend that isn't by design, it is slightly nefarious, to say the least. Anyway, as a previously scheduled meeting at a blockchain consortium, Hyperledger, about the new project called ETHUSD, using the Ethereum blockchain to create a central bank digital currency, took on new meaning and urgency. Until the bill, sponsored by Californian Congresswoman and chair of the House Financial Services Committee, Maxine Walters, mentioned the use of digital dollars, their benefits were largely theoretical. Now all of a sudden, there was a very clear use. I mean, there is a very clear use. The Fed could obviously, if it wanted to, and if it had congressional permission, approval, could directly send money to people's bank accounts, or people could set up bank accounts and then they could send the money in. So anyone that doesn't have a bank account could have the money sent to them. But obviously the financial system itself, the banks themselves are in trouble with all the liabilities they have. So it's only a clear use to send people the money directly because the banking system is in trouble. If the banking system wasn't in trouble, then they could just send it to them anyway. So it's not a case of the clear use being to send it to people directly, just as that is that's the reason for it. I mean, the reason is that they're just admitting that the financial system is basically in trouble. So such a prominent mention of digital dollars in the House bill in relation to the Federal Reserve means that the largest economy in the world has officially entered what is an increasingly heated race between a number of advanced projects at central banks around the world to be the first to issue this new kind of currency. The concept of a central bank digital currency seems to have got an imprimatur from the House Finance Committee, said Vipin Bahatharen, 59, I don't know why we need to know his age, chair of the Hyperledger Identity Working Group and former senior developer at JP Morgan Chase. Speaking at the meeting, there is a significant step that I argue that such a crisis situation always produces new ideas and acceptances of new ideas, and that will long live on after the virus has burnt through the world. So there you go, that's how bankers think. So we've got a crisis situation that we can push in new ideas and get those ideas accepted because we're in a crisis situation, and then those ideas, those systems, those things will live on after the emergency situation. What caused them to be has basically gone. So you see, that's it's like the ratchet. It's like the tightening of a ratchet. I mean, you can only click it tighter. You can't. It will never untighten. So like the central bank, the government's grip, that they increase during times of panic and fear, never reduces. And then there's the expression that there's never anything more permanent than a temporary government measure. So I mean, it's the same concept. You can see these things never get sort of ratcheted down. The government just wants to get bigger. It wants to consolidate its power. It wants to increase its power. The people in the governments want to just increase their power, their wealth. I mean, that's just how they work. I mean, you just have to look at government. It just is an entity. It's like a company. It's like a business. It is an entity. It's there for its own benefit. It isn't there to benefit people, because if it was there to benefit people, it would actively be trying to make itself as small as possible, and as insignificant as possible, and as uncontrolling as possible. And that is the opposite of what governments do. So at the time of the publication, an estimated 21,000 people have died from COVID globally, resulting in countless business closures and wiping out billions of dollars in wealth. That isn't because the people have died. That is because of the restrictions that have been put on by governments. So I mean, they're obviously missing that part out, the fact it's the government intervention that's caused that, rather than the fact that the people have died. Whilst it seems unlikely that any of the digital dollar projects currently in the works will be ready in time to transmit the trillions of dollars being sought by the Congress, ETHUSD is a great example of the race to accommodate lawmakers' increasingly open minds. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not an open mind that they want to have a more controlling, a more trackable, a more controlling payment system. I mean, that isn't an open mind. That's the same closed mind that they have, that they just want to be in control of everything. An open mind would be adopting a decentralized system, such as the actual Bitcoin network, that is decentralized, it isn't controlled by anybody, and using that globally. That would be an open mind. Ways to basically increase their control and power using new technology is their closed mind. So anyway, so another bill offered by California Democrat and Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, I did mention this. Nancy Pelosi's been talking about this. And other Democrats originally included the digital dollar language, which was stripped shortly after it started circulating in media reports. Earlier today, the Senate approved a $2.2 trillion stimulus package without mention of the digital dollar, now awaiting a vote in the House. So this was obviously passed as 2.2 trillion, but you can bet now that this is the start. This is the start of the stimulus packages that are coming. I mean, this is not enough. This is not enough to plug the gap that they're trying to plug. I'm not saying that that's what should happen, that we should be just pumping loads more money in to basically keep asset prices inflated. I mean, we should be looking for a more sustainable system. But if you're going along the logic of trying to plug the gap in the current system, 2.2 trillion is not enough, basically. Right. First conceived earlier this year, ETHUSD gets its name from thaler, a silver coin used throughout Europe for hundreds of years. from which the dollar is derived. A group of professionals from consulting firms Accenture and Infosys and the Intel Bank in Brazil have been working on open source projects in their free time for the past 6 months to explore the future of a central bank currency issued on a blockchain. Obviously, the open source is different if it's open source rather than like an XRP closed ledger, which is basically a database. I mean, open source system would be better. And it's interesting to talk about silver coins. I mean, why don't you just go back to silver as a standard? Why don't we just go back to using silver? I mean, everywhere, given a certain silver price, silver can be extracted from seawater. I mean, there's a lot of silver in the Earth's crust that can be economically mined if the price of silver goes up, if it's then used for trade. China, in the olden days, used to its currency was silver. It wasn't gold, it was silver, and and obviously the Ether is getting derived from basically the term for a silver coin. Why not use that? Anyway, token issuance systems will comply with the token taxonomy framework as a collection of standards for enterprises using Ethereum developed by JP Morgan Chase, Consensus and other members of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. In April 2019, the group, informally called Ether Labs, is building on Hyperledger Besu, an enterprise version of Ethereum submitted by Consensus subsidiary Pegasus. I mean, they're just calling these names, calling it SYS at the end, so Consensus Pegasus, to a Hyperledger to approve last August. The slide presented at today's meeting by Bahafaran, who had worked for 16 years at BNP Paribas, was founding a blockchain startup, DLT.NYC, laid out how Ether would work. So first and foremost, Ether is being designed to be fungible, meaning regardless of what central banks might end up minting in its currency, using the technology, every token will have the same value as the underlying asset, regardless of whether the token has been previously used for some nefarious purpose. Like fiat, that's sort of a dig at Bitcoin, that is. That's basically they're trying to say that Bitcoins that have been used for nefarious purposes should be confiscated regardless of who has them now. Anyway, so like fiat, like traditional fiat currencies, any initial supply of Ether-based tokens would need to be increased throughout further minting by central banks or destroyed through a process called burning. But like Bitcoin, this would also be able to divide into as many decimals as the bank desired, a crucial component for so-called micropayments, tiny online transactions not currently feasible with fiat currencies. Lastly, and perhaps most controversially, the asset must be pausable in the case of a bug or software is discovered or an update being implemented. So basically, if it's pausable, then it can just be stopped. So I mean, that's they like how they shut down the SWIFT system on certain countries. They can just shut down basically. They shut down your wallet, so they have full control of all your finance. If they move everyone's finances over to this, the money system over to this, then they can just lock any of you out of the money network. I mean, micropayments is an amazing thing that would be really good. I mean, if we basically if we just got rid of Google, had like an open source Google system where basically we would get micropayments on basically where we click, where we thing it, and then obviously advertisers would be paying in to basically get our clicks and basically paying for our eyeballs. And then we would then be getting the payments based on that, and you could do that with micropayments. You could do, I mean, micropayments open up a whole world of opportunities, which are open at the moment. So that is great. And then obviously they're talking about how the central bank can further mint more coins, which I mean obviously isn't really the idea of a blockchain cryptocurrency, isn't it? So basically they want all the upsides for central bank control, but none of the downsides of actually having to run a proper stable non-manipulated currency system. So they just want the best of both worlds anyway. So an important part of this is, and any other more advanced work, is that the role banks play or don't play as little more than a design decision. So basically this just cuts out the need for banks. If the Fed is going to be issuing a central bank currency, a cryptocurrency, there's no need for the middleman at all. I mean, the bank can just do the lending, do the whatever. It just doesn't need the banks. So anyway, Another slide reviewed by Batharan showed that Ethereum could be implemented as a wholesale solution, meaning it would only be issued to institutions with Fed accounts that could be used to instantly move large values directly to one another without needing to go through the Fed itself. Other implementation for retail, however, would operate just like cash, except it could be decimated from the central bank to the people directly. So yeah, so there you go. I mean, that just says what I said, that they just don't really actually need the banks. It can be given to the people directly. There's no real need for the middleman, even though the middleman can transfer the money between each other. So in addition to complying with the token taxonomy framework, Ethereum-based tokens will comply with the ERC 115 token standard. Other like Ethereum token standards like ERC 20, 115 is a single standard designed to support multiple kinds of tokens. So for example, the central bank could use its mint fungible dollar, digital dollar or bonds, according to the project's lead developer Mani Pillai, president of Swabsub Capital Markets infrastructure firm, who was also at the meeting. In coming weeks, the entire system is expected to be offered to open source developers, meaning anybody would be able to build on it, while developments of the code base and launch and of the test network will be governed by capital market special interest groups. Formal admittance to Hyperledger could take months. However, none of this is guaranteed. A diverse set of skeptics have long expressed a doubt and idea of a central digital currency. On one side, Bitcoin purists argue the central bank itself is a middleman that blockchain makes unnecessary, on the other are traditionalists who point out the vast majority of global currency is already digital, with no blockchain needed. According to Batharan, though, speaking in the meeting, a wallet issued by central banks filled with cash would remove counterparty risks of banks in the middle going under. There is nothing standing between you and the central bank guarantee, he said. Yeah, that's what I did point out before, that you basically get rid of the central bank, the normal banks, the middleman banks. So obviously you're not then exposed to their counterparty risk, because they've obviously done stupid things. And there was another point that I wanted to make on this. Yeah, I mean, when people say we already have a digital system, we don't really. We only have the same ledger system that people wrote on a paper, a database system. So whilst that database is now on a computer and it's digital, we don't have a digital money system. There's nothing it's digital in the respect that it's digital on a computer screen, but all it is just a digitized ledger, and that's what it is, like a normal ledger. It's not like a decentralized blockchain. I mean, that's a concept that a lot of people don't get, is that nothing has advanced in actual money in respect of the digital aspects of the world we live in. So in an interview with Batharan after the meeting, he was quick to point out that his team's work is among the youngest projects in the space. Perhaps the most prolific organisation in the burgeoning digital space is New York-based R3, which is funded by 100 million venture capital from big banks and others, and is already in advanced stages of work with 4 different currencies. Specifically, R3 says it is now working with the Swiss National Bank to explore a central bank digital currency for settlement of the Bank of Thailand for interbank settlements, Sweden's Riksbank and the digital version of Swedish krona, and the European Central Bank explore the central bank digital currencies in Europe. So, on the other hand, China has been doing this for 4 years. In fact, the Chinese government's secretive work on its own central bank digital currency is likely a contributing factor to Congress's interest in their own digital dollar. In June 2019, Facebook revealed its own plans to help launch a stablecoin backed by a basket of global currencies designed to make it easier for those without traditional banks to engage in global commerce. The news reportedly accelerated China's own plans and prompted comparison between China's central bank digital currency and Facebook's stablecoin. That was Libra. So serious is the competition to be first that in this January, the former chairman of the CFTC, Christopher Giancarlo co-launched the digital dollar project with consulting firm Accenture specifically to advocate the creation of a US digital dollar. So, as the world of fiat and cryptocurrency increasingly merges, it's not the currency itself that has most of Baharan's, how he say his name, attention. Rather, he thinks the biggest opportunity is for smart wallets that store the currency that could be programmed to automatically execute any number of tasks, from moving funds to savings account investments or being made aware of changes in tax codes. Oh, there we go. So they can make it so they can tax you on everything up to date and instantly, not just for individuals but institutions. It may not also start off with being with a bang. It may not start off with a bang with a wallet holding trillions of dollars, says Baharan, but over time it may. So yeah, I mean, this pretty much does outline everything that's going on with central banks wanting to implement a digital cryptocurrency of their own design, with their own backdoors, with their own control systems, with their own ability to inflate supply, with their own non-decentralized network, with all the downsides of government control, but then all the upsides that actual cryptocurrency does have, such as the trackability and just all of the easiness to send payments, etc. So I did do a video before on how this may play out. This was first they quarantine you, then they quarantine your cash. So this is what I mean. This is how they're going to quarantine your cash. They're going to quarantine you, your cash, your finances, and everything in their system using cryptocurrencies. And so take a look at that video here if you want to have a look. I'll put it in the link at the end, so it should be popping up on your screen now. So remember, this is not a financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Always do your own research, and I will speak to you guys soon.